What if I told you that the most secure skies in the world were silently pierced, and no one knew who did it? No alarms, no warnings, just silence. And then a question that still haunts the most powerful minds on Earth. Who sent them? This isn't a war story. This is a story about truth slipping through steel walls, about shadows moving in plain sight. In a world ruled by satellites and defense systems, something unthinkable happened, and the people who should have seen it coming were left speechless. In the next few minutes, you're going to uncover a mystery that's shaking the very foundation of modern warfare, global intelligence, and national pride. You'll hear about the breach that no radar caught, the jets that left no trail, and the silence that followed louder than any bomb. But this isn't just about Israel. This is about all of us. Because if they can be reached, who's really safe? So take a breath, lean in, and don't blink, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see power, security, and the future of conflict. Stay with me till the end, because the truth isn't hiding anymore. It's flying right over us, despite Israel being home to one of the most advanced defense systems in the world. A shocking incident unfolded that left intelligence agencies scrambling for answers. Unidentified aircraft with no national insignia, no official communication signals, and no established flight paths pierced through the heart of Israeli airspace. The breach wasn't just unexpected, it was unprecedented. Israel's Iron Dome and its layered air defense infrastructure, developed over years of warfare and strategic refinement, are designed specifically to intercept everything from short-range rockets to cruise missiles. But these jets, they came through like ghosts. No alarms were triggered in time. No fighter jets were scrambled to intercept. It was as if they had keys to a door no one knew existed. These were not random civilian planes gone astray. The flight patterns were too sharp, too precise. They flew in coordinated formations, making evasive maneuvers as though they were trained for this very route, as if they knew exactly where the blind spots were. What truly unsettled military officials wasn't just the fact that they entered Israeli airspace, it was that they lingered. These jets weren't rushing in and out. They weren't afraid. They hovered, observed, mapped, gathering intelligence, perhaps sending a message, or preparing for something greater. And then they disappeared just as quickly, leaving no trace on radar or satellite surveillance. The failure to detect these jets before they entered the zone is now being viewed not just as a technical glitch, but possibly a deeper vulnerability. One that could involve cyber manipulation, electronic warfare, or even internal compromise. Could these jets have been equipped with stealth capabilities that outmatched even the best detection systems? Or were they granted passage, knowingly or unknowingly, through a security loophole that has yet to be admitted publicly? For a nation that prides itself on constant vigilance, the psychological impact of such a violation is massive. Questions are now being raised inside intelligence circles. Who has the sophistication, the audacity, and the motive to send a message this bold, right into the center of one of the most militarized zones on Earth? The most alarming aspect of the breach wasn't just that the jets entered Israeli airspace. It was how they did it. These aircraft evaded detection in a way that suggests not only advanced stealth capabilities, but also a deep understanding of Israel's surveillance infrastructure. From radar towers and satellite feeds to ground-based detection systems, Israel's air defense is designed to catch any unauthorized object the moment it approaches. Yet in this case, there were no early warnings, no red lights blinking on military dashboards. The jets appeared on screens only after they had already breached the perimeter. And even then, the data was fragmented, glitchy, and inconsistent. Military analysts have pointed out that radar systems rely heavily on signature recognition, heat, noise, movement patterns, and radar reflectivity. These jets, however, didn't behave like conventional aircraft. They didn't give off standard electronic signals. There were no transponders, no radio communication, no IF identification friend or foe markers. It was as if they were ghosts in the machine. Some experts suspect advanced electronic warfare was at play, possibly jamming or spoofing radar signals to create false data, allowing the aircraft to slide through unnoticed. Others are now questioning whether cyber intrusion had already compromised the very systems meant to safeguard the skies. What makes this even more disturbing is the coordinated nature of the incursion. These jets didn't arrive haphazardly. Their movements were synchronized, their speed calculated, and their path unnervingly efficient. They didn't zigzag or fumble through restricted zones like amateurs. They moved like professionals who had rehearsed the operation countless times. It raises a haunting possibility. Someone somewhere has mapped out Israel's defense blueprint in extraordinary detail. There were no sonic booms. No atmospheric disruption. The aircraft entered and exited with such eerie silence that even civilian witnesses were confused, unsure of what they had seen. It wasn't until long after the breach that the Israeli Defense Forces acknowledged something had occurred, but their statements were brief and vague. That silence has only deepened the mystery. If such advanced jets can infiltrate undetected, and if no immediate action can be taken to intercept or identify them, it means the skies are no longer safe. Not just from missiles, but from intelligence entities wielding invisible tools with surgical precision. The sudden appearance of these unidentified jets inside Israeli airspace sent shockwaves not only through the military establishment, but also across diplomatic and intelligence communities. The first question wasn't just how it happened, but who would benefit from such a strategic and symbolic move. Israel's list of regional adversaries is well known, from Iran to Hezbollah-linked groups, yet none claimed responsibility, and that silence was more telling than any statement. This wasn't an act of conventional warfare. It was calculated, intelligent, and carried out with restraint. No weapons were fired. No targets were hit. It was a demonstration not of aggression, but of access. An invisible force crossing the line with impunity. That's why intelligence officials have now begun examining not just enemy motives, but also potential fractures within alliances. Israel has close ties with several global powers who provide advanced military hardware and intelligence sharing. But this incident has triggered speculation about whether those same allies could be conducting covert tests, evaluating Israel's vulnerabilities, or even sending a warning wrapped in ambiguity. Was this a message from a friend disguised as a threat? Or was it a rogue player using tactics that mimic those of the elite? The lack of any identifiable signature has made attribution nearly impossible, which is precisely why it's so dangerous. Anyone can be blamed, no one can be confirmed. This opens a door to manipulation, to fear, and to the weaponization of doubt. Then there is the possibility of a proxy force, an entity empowered by a state actor but acting independently. The coordination, the stealth, the precision, all point to a well-funded, highly trained group with access to sensitive information. If that's the case, it also raises the fear of betrayal from within. Who leaked flight paths, radar blind spots, or patrol schedules, and more importantly, why? Whether this operation was state-sponsored or rogue, it has managed to expose cracks in a fortress that was believed to be airtight. This breach has destabilized the core assumption that Israel's skies were impenetrable. Now, strategic planners are forced to look in every direction, north, south, east, and west, but also inward, toward intelligence networks, supply chains, and classified command centers. The mystery is no longer just who attacked. It's who stood to gain from the world watching Israel be humbled without a single bullet fired. When the unidentified jets breached Israeli airspace, the immediate internal response was swift but shrouded in secrecy. High-level meetings were convened behind closed doors involving top military generals, intelligence chiefs, and government leaders. Yet what followed publicly was near silence. No press conferences, no detailed statements. Just vague acknowledgments that an incident had occurred and that investigations were ongoing. For a nation that is typically rapid in its communication, especially on matters of national security, this muted reaction was itself alarming. It signaled one of two possibilities. Either the full scope of the incident remains unknown even to Israeli officials, or the truth is so disruptive that it cannot yet be shared with the public. Internationally, the story received minimal coverage, and what little was reported was devoid of detail. Major global news outlets offered only surface-level summaries, quoting unnamed officials and recycling the same cryptic language. The lack of journalistic inquiry or investigative depth was out of character, particularly given the magnitude of the breach. It sparked speculation across alternative media, security forums, and intelligence blogs. Why the sudden media blackout? Who was controlling the narrative? What does that say about what really occurred in those skies? This kind of silence is not ordinary, it's strategic. It suggests that the implications of the event extend beyond military embarrassment. There may be geopolitical consequences, intelligence compromises, or even classified technologies involved that the public isn't meant to know about. By keeping the public uninformed, authorities might be buying time to assess the full damage or negotiate with other stakeholders behind the scenes. This silence also allows space for internal panic to be managed discreetly. Panic not just within the military, but within the government's upper echelons who may now be questioning everything from defense protocols to foreign allegiances. Moreover, silence is a powerful tool. It creates a void that people will fill with fear, speculation, and rumor. And in that fog of uncertainty, enemies can thrive. The mystery jets didn't just violate airspace, they violated confidence. They shattered the illusion of total control. By not addressing the incident transparently, leaders may believe they are preserving order, but they are also planting seeds of doubt that could grow into distrust, both domestically and among global allies. In a region where perception is often as powerful as weaponry, that loss of credibility could prove more destabilizing than any physical attack. The jets that breached Israeli airspace did something extraordinary. They didn't fire a single shot, drop a single bomb, or inflict any physical damage. Yet the psychological effect they left behind was more profound than a missile strike. This was not an operation aimed at destruction, but at demonstration. Whoever sent these aircraft wanted to prove something. The act was symbolic, deliberate, and highly choreographed. It was a message encoded in silence, written across the skies of one of the most heavily monitored regions in the world. And that message was clear. Even your strongest defenses can be bypassed. Even your most guarded airspace is not beyond reach. The very absence of physical damage is what made the incident so chilling. These jets came and went without chaos, without carnage, and yet their presence alone caused widespread disruption within the corridors of power. This is the new language of modern warfare, one where visibility is more valuable than impact, and the ability to appear undetected holds more strategic power than any explosion. It's a psychological invasion, designed not to weaken buildings but to weaken belief systems. Confidence in radar, in technology, in preparedness, all of it took a hit the moment those jets vanished without a trace. In many ways, the lack of aggression made the operation feel even more intimate, almost surgical. These weren't rebels or amateurs fumbling into airspace. These were professionals, equipped with purpose and restraint. They didn't need to fire missiles to prove their capability. Their weapon was exposure, exposing gaps in security, exposing unspoken fears among top officials, and exposing a nation's vulnerability in front of a watching world. It was as if someone had walked into a locked room, looked around quietly, and left without touching a thing, only to remind you later that they were there, and you didn't even notice. This kind of psychological operation is far more destabilizing because it forces the target to question everything. If no one knows who was behind it, if no one can explain how it was done, then no one can guarantee it won't happen again. That uncertainty becomes a silent invader in its own right. It lives in the minds of decision makers, creeps into military planning sessions, and clouds public confidence. The jets didn't need to destroy. They only needed to be seen, because sometimes visibility is the most powerful form of warfare. The mysterious breach of Israeli airspace by unidentified jets signals a turning point in modern conflict. Shift from visible enemies with tanks and missiles to invisible operators who use silence, stealth, and cyber precision as their primary weapons. These aircraft, with no national markings and no known origin, didn't just expose a failure of radar or air defense. They expose a deeper, more complex threat that exists beyond the physical battlefield. This is the new era of warfare, where the enemy might not wear a uniform or fly under a flag, but instead operates in the shadows, utilizing tools that confuse, mislead, and disarm without firing a single shot. The ability to infiltrate without detection speaks volumes about the evolving nature of global power struggles, where psychological manipulation, technological supremacy, and strategic ambiguity replace brute strength and open declarations of war. What makes this incident even more unsettling is the possibility that the true weapons involved weren't the jets themselves, but the systems behind them. Artificial intelligence, satellite jamming, data spoofing, or even internal sabotage. In this context, the breach becomes a test, an experiment, or perhaps a warning, orchestrated by an actor or coalition that understands how to bypass more than just surface-level defenses. They may have targeted human complacency, digital vulnerabilities, or systemic overconfidence. Traditional military thinking is rooted in clear identification of friend and foe, invisible threats, and measurable risks. But this event shattered that framework. It introduced doubt into a system that relies on clarity, and that doubt now spreads faster than any missile ever could. In such a world, defense is no longer just about missiles and silos or drones in the sky. It's about information, perception, and control of the unseen. The enemy may never be identified, the intent never confirmed, the moment of infiltration never captured. This ambiguity is the battlefield now. Governments, militaries, and intelligence agencies must navigate an environment where nothing is guaranteed, where allies might be watching silently and enemies might be standing within. This forces a complete rethinking of security. Who has access to what? Who is monitoring the monitors? Who is writing the rules in this invisible war? These are the questions shaping the future of global conflict. And the breach over Israel may have been the first loud whisper of what that future looks like. What we witnessed in this incident was not just a breach of airspace. It was a breach of certainty, of confidence, of a long-held belief that walls of iron and intelligence could never be penetrated. The mystery jets that appeared and disappeared without a trace did more than challenge radar. They challenged perception. They reminded us that no matter how advanced a nation becomes, no matter how strong its defenses are built, there is always a force somewhere, silent and unseen, that can slip through the cracks. This wasn't a traditional act of war. It was a message in the form of presence, a whisper across the sky. A signal to the world that the next generation of warfare won't always announce itself with explosions, but with absence, silence, and calculated exposure. And the most haunting question remains, who sent them? Because until that is answered, every sky remains vulnerable, every system questionable, and every leader reminded that true power often doesn't show its face. It only leaves its shadow. Thank you all for staying with me through this deep and urgent reflection. Stay alert, stay aware. Because in times like these, truth doesn't always scream. It whispers. And only the wise hear it. Good luck, and may your eyes remain open in a world that's learning to hide in plain sight.